Hi everyone, by the end of this video, you will know if financially STEM Masters makes sense for you. So far we have covered taxes, salaries after graduation, cost of living, and potential savings annually once you graduate under the US deep dive section. We've also covered tuition and living expenses for your masters, along with earnings from part-time jobs and internships during your masters. In this video, we combine everything together and evaluate. So if you haven't watched those videos yet, please watch them. It is very important. Before I jump into specifics, I want to make one thing super clear. Whether it's financially worth it or not doesn't take away from all the other benefits that you will be getting from pursuing a master's. Research, education, learning, networking, cultural experiences, self-learning, and related benefits that we have covered in why study abroad and why masters are all valuable things. Maybe you're already from a wealthy enough family, or your family is already super comfortable with your current status of work, business, and you don't care that much for making your masters worth it financially. It's totally understandable to pursue masters for all those benefits that we just discussed. But if you're from Eastern or African countries and your family's income fits the lower to upper middle class range, then whether masters make sense financially is the primary question and primary benefit. If the ROI on money is not met, then other benefits won't matter that much. So to be super clear, this video is applicable most to prospective students whose family income fits the lower to upper middle class range and who really want to elevate their life and their family's life. Another thing that is important to understand is that the definition of whether financially if it is worth it or not also depends on your timeline. So for this, I assume the worst case for you. That is, you only get 3 years on your STEM Masters on F1 visa to work and you will leave USA after that. You don't get H1B. If you stay longer, financially it will mostly be upsides for more years that you live in the US. And also given that you can always go back if you really want for any purpose. So basically 1.5 to 2 years of your STEM Masters and then 3 years of working on OPT will be our timeline of discussion and evaluation. And it also assumes you come to the US in fall when majority of intake happens. So you fall into the regular timeline of CPT eligibility for summer internship. Alright, so let's see all the areas that influence the spending and earning during these 5 years. I call them as levers. First is initial funding scholarship. Second is school's tuition and related fee. Third is cost of living during masters. Fourth is part-time jobs on campus. Fifth is CPT full-time. Sixth is first job. Seventh is cost of living post-masters. And eighth is promotion switching job. We have total 8 levers that we can pull. Now we will discuss the average expense or earning for each lever for our timeline. For initial funding scholarship, the average case is that you don't get any tuition waivers from RATA or scholarship. So it's basically zero upside. Second is for school's tuition and related fee. Average case is $56,000 as we discussed in tuition and expense video. For cost of living, average case is $30,000 as we discussed in tuition and expenses video. For part-time jobs during regular terms, average case is you don't get RATA in any semester and you don't get part-time CPT, but you find a decent on-campus job where your average salary is $15 per hour and you work at least 15 hours per week. Taking 3 semesters, each semester you work for 15 weeks. So average case is 15 weeks, $15 per hour, 15 hours per week into 3 semesters. That is around $10,000. For CPT full-time, that is internship. Assuming you get into second-tier companies for majority of majors, average case is that you get $40 per hour into 40 hours per week into 14 weeks. That is around $24,000. And assuming you don't get any relocation and you spend additional $1,800 per month for 4 months on living, that is around $7,000. So let's calculate overall master's timeline net balance for first 1.5 years in the US. 0 minus $56,000 minus $30,000 plus $10,000 plus $24,000 minus $7,000 into 0.88. Why 0.88? Because 12% is the tax on your income. That is minus $63,000 is your average case balance at the 18th month mark. Now let's move further. For first 2 years on OPT, assumption is that you have 0 to 1 years of prior work experience. Basically, you get the fresher's salary. It also factors in some people who get promoted in less than 2 years for second year salary. Average across all masters is $90,000 for the first year and $110,000 for the second year. So $200,000 total upside. Next is for all 3 years for living. Assumption is that you own a car, you live in a 2-bed, 2-bath apartment in high cost of living area, or in a 1-bed, 1-bath apartment in low to middle cost of living area. Average is $2,750 monthly for 36 months. That is around $99,000. For third year on OPT, assumption is that you're promoted or you switch jobs to mid-level by start of the third year. So the average across all masters will be at $150,000 for the third year. So let's calculate overall post-masters net balance for the next 3 years. $200,000 plus $150,000 into 0.82. That is 18% tax on your income minus $99,000, which brings your net balance to be $188,000. This is your average case balance after next 36 months. Best part about the worst case scenario of not getting H-1B is that you don't have to pay FICA taxes, which accounts for additional 6 to 7%. So your total average case balance is $125,000 upside in savings. That is 1 crore. Wow, honestly speaking from the heart, I did not expect it to come precisely close to such a happening number. That is 1 crore. Now, if at any point of this discussion, so far you think that, wow, average is a great option, it is not. For some, it might be financially enough upside at this point. But if you're coming to the US, the potential and possibilities are super high. You should not settle for average. In my opinion, you need to perform above average in at least 4 of these 8 levers to make it all worth it, because you might not achieve average case for all 8. To share what's possible, as of February of 2024, that is when I'm writing this video script, I've officially completed 4.5 years in the US. And here is my performance for each lever. For funding and scholarships, I performed average. That is, I got zero benefit from it. I did not get any waiver. For tuition, UMass tuition falls slightly below average. That is, fees is around $60,000, but average is $56,000. But I performed above average as I saved $15,000 plus of tuition through strategic course planning. My net tuition and related fee expense for entire MSCS was $45,000. For cost of living, I spent $18,000 for 17 months. And on the 18th month, I started my full-time job. For the first year, I lived in a living room in a 2-bed, 2-bath apartment with 3 of us living. For second year, I shared my room. That is, for 2-bed, 2-bath apartment, 4 people lived in 2 rooms and I shared it with one other person. My monthly rent was around $400, average for all these 17 months in a high cost of living state, but in a college town area. So I certainly did above average in this area. For part-time jobs during on-campus, I earned total $11,000 after tax in 3 semesters. So I performed slightly above average as at UMass, even though I got TA for 1 semester. It was only for 10 hours per week without any waiver. And there was also COVID in 2020 during 2 semesters. Jobs were limited. Now for CPD, that is summer internship, I certainly did above average. I worked at Amazon as a software engineer intern, and I was also paid the housing stipend. I also extended my internship to additional 4 weeks. I earned $31,500 after tax. So let's calculate the overall master's timeline net balance for 1.5 years in the US. So this is 0 minus $45,000 minus $18,000 plus $11,000 plus $31,500, and both of them multiplied by 0.88. That is negative $25,600. Average balance at the 17th month mark. So at this point, you can already see my net negative balance is less than half of the average case. For first full-time job, I certainly did above average in this case. I worked at Amazon as a software engineer and then transitioned to applied scientist after 1.5 years. Now, I left Amazon a month before my second year, so my stocks for second year were left. But for simplicity, let's take $160,000 into 2, that is $320,000. For cost of living, I certainly did above average. Even in this case, I still don't have a car, and I get free lunch and dinner at my current job at TikTok. I strategically choose housing locations, splurge on hobbies, shoes, and it also includes my annual trips to India. My average spend for 36 months is $2,000 per month. That is $72,000. I didn't splurge much on drinks, non-business travel, or luxury housing yet. For job switch, I certainly did above average again. My total compensation is above $300,000 annually as a mid-level machine learning engineer at TikTok for past 1 year. And the salary is cash heavy. For simplicity, let's take $300,000. So let's calculate the overall post-master's net balance for next 3 years. $320,000 plus $300,000 into 0.75. I'm assuming 25% tax on my income minus $72,000. That is total $393,000 is my current plus balance post-masters. I've always lived in a state with no income tax, but unfortunately or fortunately, I've been paying the FICA taxes since mid of my first year. So my net positive balance after 4.5 years is $367,000. That is around 3 crores INR. And 80% of it is actually currently cash. And I did not have any past full-time work experience. So even though I did not get any scholarship or funding and my master's tuition on paper was slightly on the higher end, I still reached this level by being above average on rest of the levers. Now, obviously, I was lucky to be in computer science field and that to machine learning from the starting. But as of today, this much upside you can get by being in data science, hardware, or management fields too. For other fields, I'm being very honest. Even though post-master salaries will not be that high, but your masters can literally be free. You guys have far high chance of funding and lower tuition as competition is also less. And another thing I want to highlight is that not each of these levers is equally important. Usually, if we only look from the financial perspective, initial funding, scholarship, CPD, first job, promotion switching job. These 4 are more important than the other 4 levers because these 4 help you earn big or save big, while other 4s either help you save decent or earn decent. So if you want to look from financial perspective in isolation, you should optimize for being above average in these 4 levers to get the best result. But in real world, your interests and other benefits that you get from studying and living in the US can somewhat level even your average performance. Today, living in your home country, especially like India, is not at all a bad choice. But as I've shown you, upside in the US for upgrading lifestyle is immense and will remain immense for at least a decade or 2 more. If you just want to explore, study, and live in the US temporarily, financially it can be all worth it if you're slightly above average. And lastly, I would end by saying this. You are already above average because you've taken the first step to understand your dreams deeply. You're already far ahead than your peers. And if you decide to pursue masters in the US, I'm already excited to help you all achieve your American dream. Although after 4.5 years now, it seems all worth it, but in the next video, I cover my story of why did I even choose USA over Canada, even when I had a fully funded offer from a similarly ranked Canadian university. I explain my thought process, which led me to choose US over Canada in detail. I'll see you there. Peace out.